agents. This is Hannibal. Now that we've had some time to chew on the information presented in last week's The Battle for Brooklyn showcase, I wanted to go over some of the things that stood out to me. Not only in the showcase, but also from several reactions from content creators, forums, social media posts that I read. Today's video is going to sound like a rant, and I apologize now if it turns out to be the case. I'm not really into rant videos, and hopefully I can avoid that here. So let's do it. After years of waiting, after droughts, delays, and endless hope, the Division 2 finally unveiled the Battle for Brooklyn. And instead of hype, instead of celebration, what we got was something a little different. Today's discussion is a dive into why the community is frustrated and whether the Battle for Brooklyn is already stumbling before it even launches. As the long-awaited DLC launch approaches, May 27th, the Division 2 community finds itself divided. Hopeful, yet increasingly vocal about its concerns. Across forums, YouTube channels, and social media discussions, several recurring criticisms have emerged. So let's go over some of them. First off, the wait. We waited years for something new. After years of sparse updates and content drought, players were understandably eager for something substantial. And when the showcase finally dropped, we got a highlight reel about the color of the trees. Yeah, trees. In autumn. Instead of content or meaningful gameplay improvements or game content with teeth, much of the recent showcase focused on minor visual details such as the trees and leaves. Some content creators felt almost insulted that the showcase even mentioned the highlight environmental details and leaf colors over core gameplay changes after such a long wait. Not a word about game-changing features, no revolutionary systems, just, hey, look, new leaves. One content creator summed it up perfectly. After all this time, they're talking about visual details. It feels like Ubisoft completely misread the room. Some of the frustration also stems from the delay of the DLC's release. And the showcase showed a mismatch between the community's expectations and what Ubisoft chose to emphasize. Extended wait, underwhelming reveal. And then there's the enemies. Get ready, folks, because after 5 very long years since Warlords of New York, we're still fighting the cleaners. Same flamethrowers, same tanks, same grunts, only now they've got a purple flame effect that adds corrosion. One content creator nailed it by saying this isn't evolution, it's recycling. Many players pointed out the irony of fighting cleaners once more, nearly half a decade after Warlords of New York. Another content creator sharply summarized that there feels to be creative stagnation and the developers decided to recycle old factions without significant reimagination. Rather than new threats or evolved AI, the same enemies are back with only minor changes like the purple flame corrosion mechanic, leading some to argue that the expansion lacks true innovation. Now, what about the rewards? Surely, after all this time, 5 years, there's got to be killer loot, right? No? Most of the content teased so far? Cosmetics, skins, outfits, vanity gear. It feels like the Battle for Brooklyn is style over substance. More about looking good than playing better. Cosmetic overload and shallow progression. A substantial portion of the Battle for Brooklyn appears geared towards cosmetic unlocks, outfits, weapon skins, and vanity items, rather than new gear or meaningful endgame systems. Yes, we're getting new gear, but the showcase barely even touched on them. So, critics argued that this leans heavily into style over substance, offering very little actual gameplay depth. In regards to some of the mentioned gear dropping, there's a new cosmetic mask coming, the Catalyst, but it's hinted that it will be released during the Year 7 Season 1 time frame, not immediately at the DLC's launch or as a reward for completing the narrative story or doing all the things within the DLC. Yes, we're also getting a new skill, well, a newly redesigned old skill. The showcase didn't mention more Lexingtons or other weapons coming with the DLC. Another YouTuber especially criticized how little the new gear systems alter the moment-to-moment experience compared to the heavy focus on cosmetics. We've been seeing some sneak peeks from those who were fortunate enough to visit Massive, and some videos during the current PTS about what's coming in so far. Nothing's being shown in those videos is making the case that this is going to be epic. Well, I take that back. Oh, it's going to be epic. The word broke was mentioned almost everywhere I read in the forums and comments, and what I watched in the videos. Some of the gear and modifiers are just going to make everything epically broke in the game. And then, the map size. Brooklyn looks tiny. Closer to a single Warlords district than a full-scale expansion. Yeah, I'm aware. The developer said DLC, not expansion. Semantics, if I'm being honest here. For something this hype, players expected a sprawling new playground. Instead, it's starting to feel more like a polished side mission. This is coming across as a sore point for some of the players and content creators. Early impressions suggest that, given the build-up and promises of a major DLC, many feel the limited scale of it severely underdelivers. Then there's the watch points, rework concerns. The recent showcase introduced the idea of watch points adjustments. Using a fourth character to mule your watch points is no longer going to be a thing after the launch. Yes, it can be inefficient to do the mule. However, a lot of us did this because of the in-game economy is just too damned expensive. I understand that muling was not intended to be a thing from the developer's perspective, but it's not like they updated the economy well enough to make the players reconsider. There's a few content creators questioning the significance of these changes. Many fear that instead of offering fresh challenges or strategic depth, the changes merely tinker with numbers in a way that feels unimpactful and definitely unnecessary. There's also concern that players that further tinkering with existing system by the devs could upset what little balance the game has maintained. Then there's the fanboyism versus the critical feedback. The community has also noticed a clear divide among content creators. Some have expressed enthusiastic optimism, celebrating nearly every reveal without much critique. I've noticed this about some of the Fanboy channels, and every single video comes across as though Massive and Ubisoft could do no wrong with the division. I'm not calling anyone out by name, but they know who they are. While positivity isn't inherently bad, many players feel that critical perspectives are more honest reflections of the community's concerns right now. This dynamic creates tension between hype culture and grounded feedback, with some players worrying that overly positive content might misrepresent the real issues facing the Division 2 heading into its 7th year. And that has a tendency to snowball out of control. So what's the overall sentiment? A mixed bag. It's either the greatest thing since sliced bread or it's a missed opportunity. At its heart, the disappointment stems from the feeling that Division 2 had a rare chance to reclaim its place among top-tier looter shooters, and may have squandered it with the battle for Brooklyn. After 5 years, that's half a decade. A recycled faction, a small map, and cosmetic-heavy content just aren't enough for many fans who stayed loyal long through the content droughts. Now don't get me wrong, we have had several updates through the life of this game, but an overwhelmingly large percentage of those updates were bug fixes, quality of life adjustments, new gear and weapons, and manhunt missions, continuing the narrative of the game. We've also had the following since WONY, and in no particular order: Conflict, the Summit, the Incursion, Countdown, Coney Island, the Raids, the Pentagon. What we haven't had since WONY is expansions and meaningful DLC. Without bold new mechanics, narrative risks, or truly endgame defining changes, there's a palpable sense that Ubisoft is playing it too safe, potentially at the cost of the game's long-term vitality. I'll say it again, it's been half a decade since WONY. And as it stands now, it'll be 2027 or 2028 before we see signs of the Division 3 just around the corner. That's if Division 3 does indeed get to launch. There's even concerns about that, considering Heartland was canned and Resurgence keeps getting delayed. There's a lot of ifs going on here, folks. Here's my final thoughts. The Division community doesn't expect perfection. It simply expects growth. If the battle for Brooklyn cannot deliver on that, it risks alienating the very players who kept the flame alive through some of the game's driest periods. Only time will tell if Brooklyn is worth the battle. Look, I am very excited for any improvements and content added to this game. I've mentioned before in a previous video, I was not a real big Tom Clancy fan, but I do love The Division because it's different. It's not Rainbow Six Siege or Call of Duty. It's not Warframe or insert shooter game here. It's The Division. Whoever came up with this idea of The Division gave us a unique game and story. And I want to see the franchise grow. But I also want substance. Is this the devs' fault? Well, no. They have to answer to someone. Stakeholders, bosses, CEOs, etc. What I am hoping for is that the battle for Brooklyn is a door opener to bigger, better, stronger, and faster. If the Division 3 is coming and is released, we have a while before we see that come to life. So here's hoping. As an aside, here's some numbers to consider. According to Steam player statistics at the time of this video, there are roughly 2,700 concurrent players in the Division 2 within the last 30 days. The peak concurrent players in the last 30 days is around 5,400. For March 2025, about 8,400, which indicates a significant increase. According to ActivePlayer.io, there's around 162,000 daily active players across all platforms, with around 6,100 concurrent players actively playing at any given time. There's an estimate of around 10 million subscribers for the Division 2. The game's subreddit remains active, with players discussing the game all the time. So it's not like there's just a dozen of us playing the game. Do these numbers compare to games like Destiny 2? Well, yes and no. According to the same sites, there's 4 times as many concurrent players and twice the peak numbers. But there's about the same number of active subscribers and players across all platforms. So it's not like no one is playing this game. It's not like there's not a real demand here for something we can really sink our teeth into. Now it's time I turn this discussion over to you. Now that the information regarding the DLC has had some time to cook, what are your thoughts? Is criticism required? Are other content creators asking too much? Or are they making a big deal out of this on either side? Hell, a simple "I can't wait" comment would help get a conversation going. The comment section starts below. Hit me with it. Discord and X details are in the channel's description. As always, thanks for watching. If you see us at the base of operations, say hello with your favorite emote. And until the next time, this is Hannibal, signing off.